Diane is your first genre feature, I believe, since The Wind, which was a number of years ago. After doing several other films on different genres, what led you to decide to come back to the genre for this one?
I love the genre. In fact, almost all the scripts I have, other than the other two features that I made in between The Wind and Diane, are genre films, either horror or sci-fi kind of bent. So it's just my favorite. I love horror, I love sci-fi, it's my favorite genre. And there were, some commercial concerns too, of course. When we don't have a big star, I mean, we have great actors, of course, but you always have a little better luck finding distribution with the genre films. But the number one answer is love.
And yet Diane is not a traditional horror film. It has horror elements, but it's also a very absorbing drama and a very personal story. So how do you go about approaching, when you write a script, do you think of the genre elements first, or do you start with the character and then just let the story kind of unfold based on him?
I do think of a general plot line first and the kind of elements that I want to approach. This one, of course, it's a little reverse engineering too, knowing we're going to do it low budget. But the general approach is kind of the seed of the idea and the concept, and then the characters, if I'm writing them the right way, kind of take over, and they write themselves. So this became more genre as backdrop in the end.
And it evolved too. It originally started off with a live girl and a dead girl and a choice, and then
it was, yeah. I kind of sometimes forget that it was a big evolution. We did originally a story that had two girls, and the haunting was a little more direct and viscerally real. And just sort of at the last minute, we were ready to shoot. Something came up where we had to move the shoot 3 months later, and I did an entire rewrite in a month, and this is what we ended up with.
It is interesting that the haunting as such is not your traditional one. There's not a quote-unquote ghost, really. It's more memories and sort of fragmented flashes of her life. So can you talk about that approach to the material and making this a very non-traditional haunting film?
It became a little bit of the answer question kind of formula. So I would set up these landmarks or these payoffs where we would drop the answer, and through that nonlinear narrative structure, which is more like a novel, of course, reveal those things in a way that we hoped, and we structured in a way that we thought would be engaging and suspenseful, and give you a couple chills. I think it's been described as haunting by Alan Jones, and I like that description because it's not traditionally big scares. It's a kind of murder mystery with payoffs and a lot of atmosphere. Right. Did it work for you?
It absolutely did, yeah.
Okay,
could you both talk about your lead character, who played a certain way, could have been kind of unsympathetic or kind of closed out the audience, but is very engaging in the final film?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I don't know really how you would go about accomplishing that. Truly, I think it's just we approached it as zero judgment over anyone in the story, and just all of these conditions and situations that a person can be in, and trying to live it truthfully. So I'm glad that that's the experience that you had.
So what was behind the decision to make Carly a singer?
Because a dance number would have been too complicated. I'm not even joking. She was a ballerina in the first draft. I'm like,
That's true. God, that's true. And he comes from a huge love of music and music background, I think, so that certainly adds to it. And we had the luxury of working with a great score composer and being able to add that value to our experience. It was something we wanted to do. So. Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Working with Austin Wintory was something I've wanted to do for a long, long time. We've known each other for it's going on at least 10 years. And he is kind of famous for being the only video game score to ever be nominated for a Grammy.
But also, I think in the experience of the film, we have a pretty heavy sound design that I think is great. Mm-hmm. And the music, starting with the music, and the haunting sounds that I heard in story, if you will, as Steve, those the whispers and the music and all that sound, I think it contributes to it, you know, that we've started with her voice and it carries through the entire film. I think it's...
So what was your experience acting the film? Are you the type of actor who kind of internalizes and kind of carries the role with you, or can you kind of turn it on and off when you're not in front of the camera?
Yeah, so I think it's a heavy story, so it sort of stays on your back when you're not on set that day, you know, when you go home. But Carly's also my wife, and so we're sleeping in the same bed at night and kind of finding this little pocket to just turn off the story for a second and just say, oh, hey, hi, it's you, you know, not Diane that I was, you know, with all day. So we're not super method or anything like that, but I think for this story you do have to stay in the world a little bit. You can't be, you know, juggling outside and making jokes and then jump back in and deal with these sort of subject matters.
So I wanted to ask, were there any influences on this film in terms of classic horror or any films from the past that especially inspired you for this one?
Oh boy.
I'm always, you know, influenced by De Palma, you know, and I think those elements are pretty obvious. You know, even if I didn't bring it up, other people already have. And Hitchcock, of course, who, you know, De Palma, I don't think he's derivative of Hitchcock, but obviously even he admits he owes a lot to Hitchcock. Just coincidentally, I had reason to watch a bunch of the RKO Val Lewton pictures. And I hadn't seen those since like a college dark studies film course. And maybe it's just coincidence that I saw them recently, but I was like, wow, I think these impacted me a lot more than I know, because I'm sure you're familiar with his work, Cat People.
Oh yeah, of course.
And you know, The Body Snatcher, and just so many great movies. And they're all just these like weird little existential melodramas that are kind of horror movies. And I think that's where we fit.
So you mentioned things being cut out of the film. The film's a very tight running time. Was there a lot of stuff filmed that didn't wind up in the film, or was it that tight on the scripting level?
I think the original cut was almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had a lot to scale back from. What you see is essentially the movie scripted, but it's like anything. You know, you write stuff, you think you have to explain things, and we just kept on taking away. People are going to get this. People don't need this explained to them. People would, you know, the acting and the performances just being so amazing, I felt it was really easy to reduce it. And you know, for me, I don't think there's really too many movies that need to be longer than 90 minutes. So I don't think I've ever made anything that's been longer than 85.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's coming up for both of you?
So I mean, we have a project together we're trying to do that's we were talking about it on the walk over here. That's called Meanest Man in the World. It's definitely in the genre, and it's about a serial killer. Oh. We've been talking about that one for a while, before Diane even, right?
Right. It's been kicking around for quite a while. It's scripted a lot of, actually a couple other directors who have read it have offered to buy it from us. So it's the one I really want to hold on to and want to make. It's a terror film,
Cool. And then
a little more traditional.
We had something that was optioned for a while that we worked on together, based on a graphic novel called Jesus Hates Zombies. Totally sounds like a B film. Yeah. It's not. It's this buddy horror comedy drama
Wizard
thing,
of Oz.
Wizard of Oz thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Based on Stephen Lindsay's graphic novel that did really well some years ago. Mm-hmm. And we would, I mean, that would be a dream project to do. Yeah. We got some really great reviews on the screenplay and had it optioned by, I guess, 3 or 4 different companies during our time. And then we just got weary and started moving on to other projects. And so I think it's something we'd like to revisit. I think it's still timely and really a strong project.